I call the member for Upper Hunter.
Thank you, Mr Deputy Speaker. My question is directed to the Minister for Innovation and Better Regulation. How is the Liberal and National Government helping grow New South Wales through the sharing economy and empowering consumers and small business? And are there any alternative uses?
Come on. Leave the funny stuff.
Well,
Leave the funny stuff to Roberts, though.
well,
Order. I call the Minister for Innovation and Better Regulation.
hello, Mr. Speaker,
Hello.
or should I say kia ora, which, as you well know, is hello in Maori, and it's also the name of my favourite listing on Airbnb in the whole of New South Wales, which happens to be in the electorate of the member for Upper Hunter, a great member doing great things for his local community, particularly representing the interests of those people that own investment properties in Gloucester, Mr. Speaker. And Mr. Speaker, why is that relevant? Why is that relevant, Mr. Speaker?
Order.
Because
Just one moment. Stop the clock, please. Right. The Minister will continue and to be heard in silence.
Well, Mr. Speaker, you might wonder why that's relevant, but yesterday this government passed the toughest laws in the nation when it comes to short-term holiday letting. Mr. Speaker, we know that short-term holiday letting allows billions of dollars to come into the New South Wales economy, and it actually gives consumers in this state more choice at lower costs. So it's a great thing for this state, and it took this government to pass those important reforms in this state. And that's why it's so important that they were passed. Our laws are the toughest in the nation, and under our policy, what it will mean is that if you have 2 strikes against the Code of Conduct in 2 years, you'll be banned from all platforms for 5 years. That's right, 5 years. Neighbours should not have to cop bad behaviour in New South Wales, and our laws will make sure that they don't. Mr. Speaker, in addition to that, we recognise that living in strata carries with it unique challenges. And for those people that live in a strata scheme, we're allowing owners' corporations to restrict short-term holiday letting in those strata schemes with a vote of 75%. 75%, which we think gets the balance right between the needs of property owners and the interests of neighbours who should be able to enjoy the peaceful quiet of their own homes. Mr. Speaker, this is just one of a number of reforms where this government puts consumers first in this state. And whether it be Airbnb or perhaps gift cards, where we've put $60 million back in the pockets of citizens right across this state. Perhaps it's in the area of ticket scalping, where our laws are busting the business model of dodgy ticket scalpers in New South Wales. Perhaps it was taking on the New South Wales RSL and cleaning it up so people can have confidence that when they give donations to charity, it's going to go to their intended purpose. Mr. Speaker, these are all the ways this government is putting consumers first and protecting people in New South Wales. And Mr. Speaker, that stands in stark contrast to those opposite, Mr. Speaker. In stark contrast to those opposite, because they never want to put consumers first. They never want to stand up for the little guy, Mr. Speaker. And Mr. Speaker, the Leader of the Opposition had no policy when it came to gift cards. He had no policy when it came to ticket scalping.
Minister, stop the clock, please. Continue.
Mr. Speaker, the Leader of the Opposition opposed our inquiry into the RSL. The Opposition have no policies when it comes to putting consumers first in this state. They want to be the alternate government. He wants to be the alternate Premier, and he has no policies whatsoever. Mr. Speaker, they haven't got any policies, but I do appreciate one thing, and that's they supported yesterday in the upper house our proposals to introduce reforms to short-term holiday letting in this state. And that brings me back to kia ora, Mr. Speaker. Kia ora, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the palatial 5-bedroom, 5-bathroom manor of Gloucester. The manor of Gloucester, Mr. Speaker. And Mr. Speaker, it's described by the owner as a luxurious home on 30 acres of rolling hills with one of the best views of the Barrington Tops, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, who could possibly be the owner of this property? Who could possibly be the owner of this property, Mr. Speaker? Mr. Speaker, none other than the Baroness of Strathfield. None other than the Baroness of Strathfield, Mr. Speaker. No, she's not the people's princess. She's the aristocrat of Airbnb, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the member for Strathfield's neighbours are happy that we're cracking down on party houses because that would go on a fair bit at the Manor of Gloucester. Mr. Speaker, and the member for Strathfield, is particularly happy that she can now rent out a property for 365 days of the year. 365 days of the year. And I'm told, I've got it on good authority, Mr. Speaker, I've got it on good authority, Mr. Speaker, that the member for Strathfield has 2 calendars on a fridge. 2 calendars on a fridge. One calendar to count the number of days she can let out a property. The second calendar, so she can count down the number of days till the 23rd of September. Now, you might ask what's on the 23rd of September, Mr. Speaker. What's the significance of this date? Well, let me tell you the significance of this date.
Is that the major semi-final? Aren't the Dragons...
The member order, Premier.
Not only that your new property is about 10 times the size of mine.
Bring back Roberts. Bring back Roberts.
We get a group discount.
The member for Upper Under.
Country Labour Conference.
A further 2 minutes is granted.
Mr. Speaker, the second calendar on the member for Strathfield's fridge is one that counts down the number of days till the 23rd of September, Matt.
Order. Order.
Point of order. It is 129. Obviously, the minister has strayed from the question. But what I would like to know, if the minister could tell us about another estate, the Dungowan estate.
Madam Speaker, Mr. Speaker, this is relevant. This is relevant to the question. It's relevant to the sharing. It's relevant to the sharing economy. I'm talking about the sharing economy, and all these people are sharing ambitions for the 23rd of September. Now, the 23rd of September is the day when Kevin Rudd's protection racket of the Leader of the Opposition officially ends, and it's the day when the rank and file of the Labor Party no longer have a say in who their leader is. Mr. Speaker,
Order. I want to listen to this. Order. Stop the clock, please. Order. I asked the House to have respect for their elders, please. I call the member for...
I'm sure that's a reference to you, Mr Deputy Speaker.
Say.
129, Mr Deputy Speaker. The Minister clearly now is embarking on something that has nothing to do with the question that he was originally asked. And I might add, Ray Hadley was right.
Ray Hadley so often is right.
Resumes,
I will admit that.
I'm sure he's just about to show us how it is relevant to the question.
Mr. Speaker, one person that isn't looking at the 23rd of September is obviously the member for Liverpool, because he's the only one that won't be the leader of the opposition after that date. But, Mr. Speaker, what I will say is that the member...
He wants to be the leader.
Mr Deputy Speaker.
Wait. I'd like the House to come to order.
Clearly, 129, that last comment certainly has nothing to do with the question he was asked. I'm happy to concede I'm not a candidate for leader, but I know a lot more about numbers than you ever will.
Tips from the Conrad. Tips from the Minister. I retract my comment about the member for Liverpool. He can be a contender for the leadership. We would be delighted if he was. If he works hard enough. Numbers in housing commissions, that's right. Mr. Speaker, you know, they're all lining up. It's not just the member for Strathfield. The member for Kean has bought a new suit. He's divested himself of his property empire, which surely shows ambition. The member for Cogra, the once Messiah. No one's promised so much, yet delivered so little in this place, Madam Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the General Secretary would prefer the member for Mount Druitt than the member for Cogra to be the leader of the opposition.
Minister, come back to the lead of the question, please.
Mr. Speaker, Luke Foley is a liability. They know it, we know it, the people of New South Wales know it. The sooner he takes flight, the better.